And welcome to the news on NTA International. I am Dennis Adegunloye. Let's begin with the headlines. Nigeria's trade surplus soars by 44.31% in second quarter of 2025. Second ECOWAS conference on Lassa fever ends in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, with a commitment to implement recommendations quickly. And Nepal's former Chief Justice Sushila Karki takes oath of office as Prime Minister to lead a 6-month transition to elections. Nigeria's trade surplus soared by 44.31% in the second quarter of 2025, reaching 7.463 billion naira, according to the latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics. The figures released Friday showed that the country's total merchandise trade rose to 38.037 billion naira, marking a 20.05% increase from 31.683 billion naira in quarter 2 of 2024 and a 5.59% rise from 36.024 billion naira in quarter 1 of 2025. Exports, which accounted for 59.81% of total trade, grew by 28.43% to 22.750 billion naira, compared to 17.714 billion naira in quarter 2 of 2024, and by 10.45% from 20.598 billion naira in quarter 1 of 2025. Crude oil dominated exports, contributing 11.965 billion naira, or 52.60% of the total, while non-crude oil exports reached 10.784 billion naira, with non-oil products making up 3.045 billion naira, or 13.39% of total exports. Imports representing 40.19% of trade totaled 15.286 billion naira, up 9.43% from 13.969 billion naira in quarter 2 of 2024, but slightly down by 0.9% from 15.426 billion naira in quarter 1 of 2025. The robust trade performance underscores Nigeria's strengthening position in global markets, driven by significant growth in both oil and non-oil exports. The second ECOWAS conference on Lassa fever has ended in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, with a commitment to advance quickly recommendations on upscaling the activities of the Waho Regional Center for Disease Surveillance and to forge a common agenda on vaccine developments for effective management and control of the Lassa fever scourge in the sub-region. Details with Kelvin Ebwanaye.
4 days of intense conversations, scientific presentations on diverse areas of Lassa fever research and evaluation of disease surveillance patterns by a gathering of over 500 scientists and policymakers have now put member states of ECOWAS on a better footing to not only design a better Lassa fever response strategy, but the establishment of a regional policy and action plan to combat the impact of the disease, seen as one of the most devastating health challenges in the sub-region. Now referred to as the Abidjan Momentum, the framework also encompasses a place for traditional medicine research and application for the control of the disease.
Expected resolutions will guide our policy framework on tackling Lassa fever control. We at WAO will continue to support the national and regional efforts aimed at building resilience of our communities against infectious diseases.
Of significant note at the conference was the activation of ECOWAS Young Researchers Platform, designed to encourage and support new generation of researchers in Lassa fever and other infectious diseases, with Nigeria's Aziz Moshood shining brightly and clinching the top prize in Best Porter category.
What I'm taking home now is that there's a need for us to go back to our labs to work on RDTs, which means rapid diagnosis test kits for Lassa, because to diagnose Lassa as a medical lab scientist, to diagnose Lassa takes a day, 2 days, 3 days. We need point of care testing where a patient will be presented to the lab and they will be able to know exactly immediately that this patient has Lassa.
How do we make sure that the solutions that we're creating are really coming from the region, and that regional colleagues, national colleagues, whether with universities or research institutions, are not working in silo or are not just beneficiaries, but they're actually co-designers of the solutions we're creating. So those are a mix of challenges but also solutions for the disease.
Before the next conference, it is expected that a lot would have been achieved and implemented from the resolutions here, with firm focus on vaccine development. In Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, Kelvin Ebonwaye, NTA News.
The Democratic Republic of Congo's military court has postponed the verdict in the treason trial of former President Joseph Kabila, and United Arab Emirates reaffirms commitment to strengthen relations with the African Union Commission. Chukunonso Nwabweze reports.
The adjournment comes as the military justice agreed to reopen the debate after a last-minute appeal demanding a reclassification for espionage. The treason trial of the former president began July this year in a military court in the capital, Kinshasa. He also faces other charges, including murder and rape, linked to his alleged support for M23 rebels, but Kabila denies the charges. He had been living outside the country for 2 years, but arrived in the rebel-held city of Goma in eastern DRC in May from self-imposed exile in South Africa. Former presidents in DRC Congo serve as senators for life and enjoy lifetime immunity. However, in May, Kabila's fellow senators stripped his immunity to allow his prosecution. In other news, the United Arab Emirates, UAE, has reaffirmed its commitment at deepening collaboration with the African Union Commission. UAE's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan, who stated this when he played host to the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, in Abu Dhabi. Talks between the two centered on strengthening support for development efforts across Africa. Sheikh Abdullah also reiterated UAE's resolve to bolster ties with the African Union Commission and fostering positive relations with African nations to support sustainable development and economic growth on the continent. The two sides also exchanged views on a range of regional and international developments. Meanwhile, rescue workers race against time to reach 7 miners trapped in an illegal gold shaft that collapsed in southwest Colombia. Officials say the 7 had been underground since Thursday night after a landslide struck the municipality. A UN report said about 94,000 hectares of land in Colombia are illegally mined in a process that pollutes the natural water resources with mercury. Chukunonso Nwabweze, NTA News.
Elsewhere, the United States, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates have unveiled a new roadmap for peace in Sudan, urging both sides in the country's devastating civil war to agree to an immediate ceasefire. Habiba Yaminu reports.
The foreign ministers of the 4 nations known as the Quad have called for a 9-month transitional process after a truce to pave way for civilian-led governance. They stressed that there is no viable military solution to the conflict, which has already killed about 40,000 people and displaced more than 12 million.
Because each forum has got its own ways and its own interests of trying to get the peace process done. So one major failure for any peace agreement that the forums that have been conducted is that there is a multiple of them, and that will not help. So I think what we will need to do is to encourage a unified forum with specific programs, with priorities.
The new peace plan also rejects any role for Sudan's former rulers and came alongside fresh U.S. sanctions on Finance Minister Jibril Ibrahim and an Islamist militia accused for fighting alongside the army.
I think the key issue is for this war to stop immediately and not to go further anymore, because there is a danger of spreading to neighboring countries. Today, the army unfortunately continue to believe that it can win the war and by force, but this is a big mistake, because no civil war has ever been won by force.
The Quad nations say they remain committed to Sudan's unity, but for millions caught in the war, peace is still out of reach. In Abuja, Habibat Aminu, NTA News.
Poland at a United Nations Security Council meeting has warned of escalation of Russian aggression within the region following an alleged intrusion of Russian drones into its airspace. And Nepal's former Chief Justice Sushila Karki sworn in as Prime Minister to lead a 6-month transition to elections after deadly anti-corruption protests ousted the government. Details with Chukwunonso Mabweze.
The Polish Deputy Foreign Minister at the UN Security Council meeting requested by his country warned that Russia wants to set the region on fire after an alleged intrusion of Russian drones into Poland's airspace. He, alongside other 40 Polish allies, called on the Russian Federation to immediately cease its war of aggression against Ukraine, to renounce any further provocations, and to respect its obligations under the UN Charter, stressing that escalation cannot lead to peace.
We know that it was not a mistake. We call upon the Council to respond to Russian criminal actions with unified, unequivocal and immediate condemnation.
If this Council does not act, if it fails to stop this new phase of Russia's escalation, we are not talking about regional instability any longer. We are staring into the abyss of a third world war.
Russia has intensified its bombing campaign against Ukraine, resulting in loss of life and damage to civilian infrastructure. These actions, now with the addition of violating the airspace of a U.S. ally, intentionally or otherwise, show immense disrespect for good faith U.S. efforts to bring an end to this conflict.
We therefore, once again, urgently call for a full, immediate, and unconditional ceasefire in Ukraine.
Russia's permanent representative to the United Nations, while denying that the drones were Russian, said there were no targets marked on Polish territory. The maximum range of the drones used in the strike did not exceed 700 kilometers, which makes it physically impossible for them to have reached Polish territory, he stated. In another development, Nepal's former Chief Justice Sushila Karki has been sworn in as the country's prime minister to lead a 6-month transition to elections after deadly anti-corruption protests ousted the government. The 73-year-old Karki, who is Nepal's first woman Chief Justice, pledged to fulfill her duty as prime minister as she was sworn into office by President Ramachandra Paudel at a small ceremony in the presidential palace, attended by diplomats and some former leaders. The parliament was later dissolved and elections fixed for March 5, 2026. The Himalayan nation of 30 million people was launched into chaos in the last 7 days after security forces tried to crush rallies by young anti-corruption protesters. At least 51 people were killed in the worst violence since the end of a civil war and the abolition of the monarchy in 2008. Chukwunonso Mabweze, NTN News.
The United Nations General Assembly has overwhelmingly endorsed a declaration calling for tangible steps towards a two-state solution between Israel and Palestine. The vote comes amid ongoing war in Gaza and sharp divisions among member states. At the United Nations, 142 countries voted in favor of a resolution backing a declaration that demands tangible, time-bound and irreversible steps towards creating a Palestinian state. 10 countries, including the United States and Israel, opposed it, while 12 abstained. The declaration condemns both the October 7th Hamas attack on Israel and Israel's military response in Gaza, accusing both sides of targeting civilians. It also calls for the immediate end of the war and for the UN Security Council to authorize a temporary international stabilization mission. World leaders are set to meet again on September 22nd, where several Western nations, including Britain, France and Canada, are expected to formally recognize a Palestinian state. Meanwhile, the Israeli military said on Saturday that more than 250,000 people have left Gaza City for other parts of the territory over the past few weeks, since it intensified its assault on Gaza's largest urban center. According to IDF military estimates, more than 250,000 residents of Gaza City have moved out for their own safety. The United Nations estimates that about 1 million Palestinians live in and around Gaza City. Media restrictions in Gaza and difficulties in accessing many areas make it difficult to independently verify details provided by the military or reported by the Palestinian Territories Civilian Defense Agency. On Saturday, the Israeli military dropped leaflets urging residents in the western districts to evacuate as Gaza's Civil Defense Agency reported continuous airstrikes. Israel has come under mounting international pressure to halt its offensive, but says it remains determined to dismantle Hamas in what it describes as one of the group's last strongholds. In recent weeks, the military has primarily targeted high-rise buildings, saying they were being used by Hamas militants. The United Nations and members of the international community have warned against the military's assault for fear it will worsen the already dire humanitarian situation in Gaza City, where the UN has declared a famine. On Friday, at least 50 people were killed across the territory, the Civil Defense Agency said. This is the news on NTA International. We'll take a break now. More reports shortly. Stay with us.
By the special grace of God, I will be turning 65 years old on the 21st September 2025. And this happens to be a Sunday. This is why I have decided to dedicate the day to God for all His blessings in my life and having a quiet birthday. I wish to appeal to those who would like to send a birthday card, cakes, flowers, greetings in the newspapers, or gifts. Should please send the funds to the designated account for a special project close to my heart, among many others. The completion of the National Library. This will be the best birthday present I could receive. My love for education has informed my decision to dedicate my birthday to this worthy cause. This fund is coordinated by the Federal Ministry of Education under Oluremi at 65 Education Fund, Zenith Bank PLC. Account number is 131-031-4977. Thank you for joining me in this building project. God bless you.
Welcome back. The National Forum of former legislators from the 17 southern states has endorsed President Bola Tinubu as their sole candidate for the presidency for the 2027 general elections and declared support for the South to complete the 8-year presidential tenure. This was at a summit held in Abeokuta, Ogun State, with the theme National Unity, Bedrock of Nation Building, convened by the Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila. Yemi Dalemo reports.
The summit is a reunion of sorts for former National and State Assembly legislators. We provided a platform for them to add their voices to issues of national discourse. Chief of Staff to the President and former Speaker, House of Representatives Femi Gbajabiamila, among other key stakeholders, notes that nation building is a joint task, urging all to join hands with President Bola Tinubu to transform Nigeria.
There's still a lot of work to be done. However, you must not let anyone tell you that we are not steadily marching forward. Our task remains to continue in that forward march with determination and humility, confident in the knowledge that by the grace of Almighty God and our joint efforts, all our best dreams for Nigeria will be achieved.
As a body, we are committed to issues that will promote the peace, unity of our dear country and also entrench democracy.
Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun, former speakers of the House of Representatives, and others commended the innovative reforms of government, which include the establishment of regional development commissions, local government autonomy, student loan scheme, and the regulation of the power sector.
Asiwaju must complete his 8 years. Nigeria is rising again.
Testament to the world of what unity in diversity can truly accomplish. A united and prosperous Nigeria is possible.
It's a very good opportunity and time for the legislators to put our house in order.
In a communique at the end of the summit, unanimously commit to the promotion of unity, peace, and development of Nigeria.
It is in the best interest of the South and the nation that the incumbent president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, completes his tenure of the South. Accordingly, we adopt him as our sole candidate for 2027 election.
The National Forum of Former Legislators urged Nigerians to promote national unity and firm foundation of nation building. In Abuja, Yemi Dalim, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Kebbi State APC caucus in the National Assembly has refuted allegations by former Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, that Governor Nasir Idris is engaging in secret arms deals. Addressing National Assembly correspondents in Abuja, the caucus, led by Senator Adamu Aliru, also dismissed as false Malami's recent petition to security agencies alleging that the Kebbi State governor is importing political thugs and recruiting foreign mercenaries in the state. The caucus members expressed solidarity with the Kebbi State governor's commitment to peace and development in the state, describing the former Attorney General's claims as politically motivated.
Ironically, it is on record that during Malami's recent condolence visit to Benin Kebbi, he hired thugs from Sokoto, Koko, and Rara to accompany him into the state capital. These thugs, under his watch, attacked the APC state secretariat with stones while chanting one-term slogan against the governor. Their actions led to a violent clash with APC supporters, an unprecedented development in Kebbi politics, which has always been known for its peaceful nature and culture and mutual respect. This incident alone speaks volumes about who is truly attempting to sow chaos and disrupt the peace of our dear state. At no time had the Kebbi State government nor the APC family been involved in clandestine activities or linked with terrorist groups, as mischievously signed personally by former Attorney General and Minister of Justice.
In the meantime, the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, has warned non-state actors undermining the peace and stability of Nigeria that there will be no hiding place for them. He gave the warning in a message to the graduation ceremony of a special squad of the Nigeria Forest Security Service held at the Police Mobile Force Training College in Osun State. Femi Afariogun reports.
Recognizing the place of forest in the security architecture of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu established Nigerian Forest Security Service. In his message to the first graduation of the special squad of the service, comprising of vigilantes, civilian joint task force, and hunters, the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu, believes they have what it takes to stem the tide of banditry, kidnapping, and insurgency in the forest.
The third persons recorded so far by our security forces are evidence that Nigeria is determined to reclaim every space and restore law and order. Today's graduation is a further statement of intent, showing that the government will deny criminals the cover they seek in our forests.
The special squad of 616 personnel drawn from the northeast, northwest, and north central have been trained for 12 weeks.
That with the level of what we have achieved, we are going to have a succor in this issue of terrorism, kidnapping, cattle rustling, and even rescue of kidnapped victims. We all draw them from their various places where they belong. So we are all training them and returning them back to those areas that they are already familiar with. So they are good to go.
We have been fighting insurgency without enough support. We appreciate this training from President Tinubu's government. God bless him.
Those who stood out during the training were given awards, a spur for the task ahead. From the Police Mobile Force Training College, Ilaorogun, Femi Afariogun, NTA News.
Now our transport correspondent Ladi Bala will give us some cheery news for train commuters, enthusiasts and business operators who rely on the Abuja-Kaduna rail route.
Accidents of any sort leave behind varying degrees of impact. However, deliberate and proactive steps taken to prevent reoccurrence with a human-face approach make the difference. These underscore the sustained effort of stakeholders in restoring damaged tracks along Abuja-Kaduna route.
The concrete slippers already, so it's just for us now to connect the rails and also insert the fish plates to connect at both ends.
They are doing very well and we've achieved a lot, and I'm really impressed with the kind of work they are doing.
The level of the work is okay. There is no problem because the way we handle it right from beginning up to this extent is very good.
The mobilization of critical stakeholders, machines and technical personnel for the evacuation of coaches and locomotives, and now the almost completion of repairs to the damaged tracks demonstrates the commitment and determination of the Nigerian Railway Corporation to restore Nigerians' hope in the sector.
Specifically, laying of the track, that is to assure fitness for traffic at the site here, is 90% completed. So the other 10% we can do in the next week. For us, we will have declared the line fit for operations by the time we would have checked the line for this safety audit we're talking about.
The site shows no sign of train derailment, only relentless workers laying sleepers, rails and related materials, as well as unheard echo of hope of restoration of train services lingering in the air. From the Kaduna-Abuja train derailment scene, Ladibala, NTA News.
And that report concludes the news on NTA International at this time. Many thanks for watching. I am Dennis Adegunloye.